What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today I'm going to be breaking down my buddy Ian Cummings' 2025 way too early NFL mock draft. Love you guys for supporting me. If you guys are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. I've been a little bit iffy in terms of posting over the past week or so because I had a couple things that went on. If you guys want to read about that, I did a community post about it, but right as I was getting back from that, I ended up getting a little bit under the weather. So I'm still going to sound like that. I ended up peeling off my little nose bridge because that looks absolutely hideous on camera, but we're going to make it through this. But I want to get you guys some fun content in here. I've been studying the tight end class. It's going to be probably one of my next videos. I do still have all those deep dives that we are going to be doing on all those teams. I have all the slides ready. I was about to do a ton of them. We might do that a little bit later tonight and record those, but we'll see. Let's get into this, though. I want to have a good time here. You get to see, actually, where I already have tight ends ranked as well. That will be below my face. Below that is going to be all the great ways to get involved in the community. There's a great little link tree in the description where you just click that. It takes you to all the links for my show, all the sponsors, all the different things I do, like YouTube, X, Instagram, all that stuff. It's all there for you. So feel free to go check it out. It doesn't cost you anything. And then, you know what? If you want to use one of those sponsors, always is grateful. It's always awesome to be able to get some support from you guys in the off season for that. But we're going to be having some fun anyways. Let's get right on into it. But yes, I do know Ian Cummings. Been able to talk to him before. We might bring him on the show as well. Ian's a great guy. I just, especially with what's been going on, haven't been in the mood too much for collaboration, especially with our 4-hour, relatively weekly streams. It's been weekly, but the past 2 weeks have been a little bit more iffy up in the air because of things that have been going on. But Brosho and I do a weekly stream that's usually 3 and upwards of 4 hours. And yes, we get paid $4 for doing that. So don't try to act like it's for the money. We do it for fun. So I'm a little bit emotionally tapped out on collaboration for the short period. But once we get going, it's going to get exciting because we're going to bring on a lot of people this year. Connor Rogers, hopefully, is going to be the new addition to the lineup because we were supposed to do something last season. Got a little bit caught up, but this season should be more awesome, which we had some great guys at the end of last season. We'll have those guys back as well. Starting off with the first overall pick, we have Carson Beck going to the Giants. Apparently, the Giants trade up. I'm not going to negotiate with trades right now. I'm not going to even feasibly think about that. If the Giants are in the top 10, I do believe that they'll be searching for their next signal caller. Carson Beck has the mobility to work really well in this offense. I think he is pretty much relatively close to the talent level of Daniel Jones, but just better. And he fits the same archetype. I think Beck could be someone. He's not someone who I thoroughly believe in as a guaranteed starter. Like if I have somebody in the green here at a quarterback position, and yes, I know Dylan Gabriel, honestly, I might be knocking down because I just might start really honing in on like frame being a legit thing. And it's like usually it's a gimme category for a lot of players, and I try to take that out of my grading. But if you're sub 6 foot, that literally should be probably a -5, and for me it's like a -2. So there's certainly a chance of that. But if you see somebody who I believe is a genuine starter, I think they can realistically compete for a top 20 at their role in the NFL. And Carson Beck is a fringe guy, so he's probably going to be in that 20 to 32 range. And I think Daniel Jones is pretty much that 30 to 32 range. So you're going to be getting an increase or at least a stagnation of talent, which for the number 1 overall pick, I think you'd hope for a significant improvement. But that's because I'm also lower on Carson Beck than Ian is. So, but I really do think the floor is that you can't get worse by upgrading to Carson Beck. So it is definitely an upgrade, and it's an instant system fit. So the Giants, I don't know if I'd do that trade, but at the same time, who cares? We're talking about the players here and the fits more than the actual picks itself. Panthers then go Travis Hunter. I still got to study him as a wide receiver, but I did like him as a cornerback. He is at my number 16 overall player in the draft at the moment. I think his zone instincts are incredible. I do think he sometimes fluctuates in terms of the amount of effort he puts in. Granted, when you're playing 100 reps, it's not very easy to be able to put 100% effort on every rep, but one rep stuck with me in particular. It's the fact it was a route versus Tetairoa McMillan, or a play versus Tetairoa McMillan in the end zone where Tetairoa ended up just mossing his ass. And for me, there was no opposition at all. It was just pretty much he gave up. He didn't actually contest the ball. And there were just reps on tape where I really didn't feel like he applied himself when it was one of those reps I thought he should. And again, you have to have some leeway, and like it's something I'm still developing. I'm very proud. I'm very confident in my cornerback evaluations, but I still know I'm developing in terms of that feel for when corners should be putting in full effort. But there's just this sense of where I was really hoping Travis would be locked in, and he wouldn't. And I do worry about that, especially with all the stuff with Daddy Sanders and stuff like that. Like, there's a whole lot of drama that's unnecessary, and I don't want that leaching into Travis Hunter's game. I don't know if it has, so I'm not saying it has, but when I do see him taking off a rep like that, the questions start to pop up. But Travis Hunter is still a great player. Again, top 16 on my board. I think Carolina going after a defensive back would be a very smart move. They have a lot of really young talent on that offense that needs to just probably develop and get better. Carolina might be one of those teams that surprisingly does better than what you think. So keep that in mind. Number 3, the Tennessee Titans go Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. I know this is Ian's, I think, top player. There he is. He's a blue chip prospect on my board. Pretty sure he is the number 1 player last time I checked on Ian's Twitter. But, Malachi Starks, I'm grading the safeties probably last, so I'm going tight ends right now. And I believe safety is the last position I have yet to grade. So there you go. Process of elimination, right? But Malachi Starks is somebody who I had early on as a very high player on my board, my top safety out the gate. So when I was watching Javon Bullard, I think that I was lower on him and Tyke Smith because of the fact that I was watching him next to Malachi Starks. And it might just be because Malachi could be a blue chip player. So I'm super excited to see that. At 4, Tetairoa McMillan goes to the Patriots. I talked about him earlier. I'm just going to be honest. I am not a fan of Tetairoa. I just don't trust him to be able to separate at the next level. And, some people say you don't need to separate when you have the best hands arguably of all time. It's a fair point. But I don't think his route running is refined at all. I think that he is basically a worse version of Michael Pittman Jr. coming out. And Michael Pittman Jr. is great. I got to see him in high school. He went to my same high school. So, I have a lot of love for that type of frame, and I love that build. And I was a big fan of Keon Coleman this past year. So there's a lot that I do love about that style of player. But there's just something about Tetairoa, and y'all know I had him as my number 7 projected player coming into the year. I was more than a fan of Tetairoa when I was just seeing him via osmosis of watching other players. But there was something about when I was watching him, I could not get on board. I don't know why. I could not get on board. And it was the crap route running, the lack of separation. And in the NFL, these DBs who are even 6 foot, they have better verticals. They have more aggression. They have better timing. And they have better ball tracking than these guys in college. And that's why a lot of these guys who use frame and contested catch ability as their primary asset, it's why they don't always do so well in the NFL, because the DBs just make it less valuable. And that's why I'm worried when we're talking about a true wide receiver 1 here. I just don't think Tetairoa is that. And it's one of those guys where I'm excited to be proven wrong. Again, I want all the best for him, and I would love a 6'5", 220-pound target to definitely flourish when he has those type of hands. But I just can't get on board with it. Number 5, we got the Commanders going Luther Burden. Another player I'm much lower on than most people, not because of the talent, because I think that he is pretty much Deontay Johnson, but it's the lack of effort. There's a particular play where people like to highlight Harold Perkins as the one who does a really good job on it, but because he lurks and gets an interception, and it was supposed to be pretty much a deep post to Luther Burden. Not a deep post, just like a standard post route. And it was just Luther running half-assed. He was just running slow, so it's not like he was genuinely going to get separation in the first place, but he just didn't get to the target on time. And there were a lot of plays where I just didn't think he put a lot of effort in, but the talent is there. So that's why I'm a little bit lower on Luther Burden, but again, it's not talent-based. It's the fact that on reps that I thought he really should have shown more effort, he did not. Denver Broncos then go Ben Morrison, DB out of Notre Dame. My number 2 player in the class. I think he's awesome. It's just Will Johnson, to me, is an alien. I think that he's probably the best player I've ever graded, and it's pretty much him and Sauce Gardner as my highest graded players of all time. So keep that in mind. But Denver getting Ben Morrison would be awesome. Will Johnson would be awesome. It'd be a blessing to get either of them there at 6. The other one would end up going to the Cardinals at 7. I do think if the Cardinals can actually get someone who is over 6 feet tall in their corner, that'd be a great thing. Will Johnson would be a dream there. Literally an ideal player. I literally say he's an alien. Feel free to check out all the players that you see on my list, apart from the tight ends. They have a dedicated video that breaks down them in much more depth. At 8, the Vegas Raiders go Jackson Dart. I think that his arm is, I think, garbage. I mean, I'm sorry. I hate to say it. I have to be that guy. But I mean, we're talking about layering tight window throws. It's not like he can really genuinely throw a ball into a tight window past probably 10 yards if it's not layered, because it just doesn't have the pure velocity to get there at the NFL level. I really do want to love Jackson Dart because I'm a sucker for Ole Miss. I don't know why, but I am. Like, I really love Ole Miss players with all my heart. Like, Matt Corral, who's my high school quarterback, to be fair, was an Ole Miss quarterback. So, I mean, when I was first getting into college football, Ole Miss was arguably my team. It's Ohio State because my family has alums from there, but Ole Miss was the team I adopted as like one of my favorite teams. So, again, I have I'm very biased towards wanting Ole Miss players to succeed. And, Jackson Dart, just the ball velocity just does not appear to pop off on tape at all. A good athlete, the flashes are there, but it's just, I don't think it's consistent enough to go to the NFL. I think the Vegas Raiders, again, if I'm proven wrong, I'm happy, right? I'm so much more happier to be proven wrong about a player I don't like, because good football is always better than being right about a player busting out. But just, I would be very, very, very pessimistic about the potential of an upgrade here with Jackson Dart. Deion Walker goes at pick 9 to the Vikings. He's a freak of nature. I mean, just somebody at his size, 6'6", 350, who has that technique. It really is rare. The problem is he doesn't know how to keep his pad level low. He stands all 6'6" straight up. And watch the game versus Georgia. It was embarrassing. They took advantage of him. And that was an offensive line that didn't have very much high-end talent that he faced, but it was extremely high floor talent. And basically they're all NFL level players, just maybe not NFL every down starters, maybe, or like not all pro level players. And when you got to see him versus consistent NFL talent, they took advantage of his lack of pad level, and he was on his ass a lot. So I'm very, very worried about that. But if he ends up fixing that, which is something that I'm debating on as to whether he actually, like, that's an easy to fix thing, or, it's something that's really going to have to be wired out, that will determine whether I really want to boost him up my board or not. At pick 10, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go Mason Graham, defensive interior out of Michigan. He's my top defensive interior. But the problem is I don't really see very much room for Mason Graham on Tampa Bay. I think, I know that they have a lot of rotational guys at the defensive end labeled position, and Mason Graham could fit that, but, the edge rusher position is so much more valuable for what you can, wins above replacement wise, because Tampa Bay does not have a genuine edge one. I think you can boost the cornerback core as well if you wanted to, because this cornerback core is ridiculously good. There's just a lot of other places that maybe I'd target over a defensive interior. But pick number 11, the Saints go Drew Aller. He was my quarterback 17. And y'all know I love Penn State. I just do. I'm a sucker for Penn State players. I have their running backs far higher than probably anybody does on planet Earth. Sue me. But, I mean, don't do that. People already try to do that enough. But Drew Aller, he has a great size. He has a ball that just jumps off his hand. Like, it really is awesome. But he cannot hit a moving target consistently to save his life. And, I literally said he's accurate on targets that are stationary, right? The placement's not there either. To be fair, it's like really spotty. But it's just Drew Aller needs to work with more quarterback mechanics coaches, because it's just not consistent enough. And I just don't know if that's going to translate. But he is young. He is relatively athletic, not like crazy, but he does have a ton of potential. And the thing I love the most about him is I think he's the most accurate when he's on the move, which that shows that if the play breaks down, he's still reliable. And I really do hope that that ends up being like something he could show off more as he's developing these other talents, which if he does, and that becomes a staple of his game, I wouldn't be ashamed of him going in the first round. But the problem is, as an overall holistic quarterback, he is so far off that I don't know if it's within the grasp of reality to see him boosting up to this in just a year. At 12, the Colts go Colston Loveland. Spoiler alert, he is in my top 25, which I mean, you actually can't see the tight ends on your list, but they're right below where you can see. Let's just say that. Colston Loveland's a great tight end. The problem is he's 245. I think his blocking needs a bit of work, but at 245, he does a good job. And he's not afraid of contact. There's not really much I don't like about Colston Loveland. That's a good news about this tight end class. We actually have legit starters who grade significantly better than the majority of tight ends over recent memory. And, to be fair, I think that they're in a similar tier to what I had with Sam Laporta. But Sam Laporta, that tape was not easy to find back then. So, I mean, I fell in love with him, and I just didn't continue reaffirming it. I'm glad that I did fall in love with him from the get-go, but with Colston Loveland, I was saying, like, this guy feels almost like a wide receiver right out the gate. And I could totally see that with him. It's going to be weird, though, because he was with A.J. Barner. A.J. Barner was always the inline tight end, and Colston was always the slot. It's going to be interesting to see how he works in here and if he can be on the line of scrimmage consistently, because he's just not a massive asset as a blocker. He's not a liability, but he's not a massive asset. Seattle Seahawks at 13 go Mikael Williams. I was a little bit underwhelmed with Mikael. I could see the upside there. I think he can be a 1 year, switch it around, and really fix the holes in his game type of guy. And I'd be very happy for that. He's athletic as hell. He's explosive. At 265, he really can move like he's 245. The problem is he also kind of plays like he's 245. Doesn't have that power to his game. And I'm hoping for the best for Mikael, because he's somebody who I was initially very, very high on. Saw him in the All-American game, was a big fan of his, but he does lack that polish that I really want and the application of his size that I really want for someone of his size. So we'll see what happens with him, but could be someone who goes back for another year and just tries to finish off what he started there and what he could really be. Fernando Mark Carmona, tackle out of Arkansas, goes to the Jaguars at 14. I just doubt the Jaguars are going to go after another tackle. Arkansas's offensive tackles never stood out to me, but I have seen his name pop up. I'm going to be going back through after the safeties and grading. I'm deep diving on all the positions. Already did that on the quarterbacks, but did most of the players that, all the players that I wanted to grade pretty much for all the positions, all the guys who are at the top. And then, I know PFN likes to throw in a lot of guys that aren't really mentioned. That's where I also start adding these guys in for all the deep dives. So you're pretty much going to get 2 rankings for one, and you get to see the guys who I fall in love with rank amongst these guys here. So it's going to be super cool. But I just don't know if the Jaguars would go after a left tackle this early when I think that, again, it's a lot of projection, but we're projecting a lot here as well. I would assume that Walker Little might be able to be signed to a shorter term contract if he ends up showing some stuff. So we'll see. We will see. But at pick 15, the Steelers go Tyleik Williams. Defensive interior, grabbing another guy to basically be a successor to Cam Hayward. It's never a bad idea. Tyleik is my defensive interior too. I just think the Steelers need to continue reinforcing the offense. I don't think the defense would be an issue here if they are at pick 15. So I think that would be the route I would end up suggesting. Pick 16, the Chargers go Nick Scourton. He is my number 3 player in the class. He is absolutely awesome. Great value, because this does factor in positional value as well. He is just pretty much, I have him graded almost identically to Marshawn Kneeland of last year. And I was a big fan of Marshawn. He was top 20 for me on my board. And Nick Scourton, this year, to be fair, I just don't have very many 80 grades. I had that last year. Like, a lot of that class was spectacular. This year, very, very good class. He's, I think, graded at 79, like 79.5. So he's right under that blue chip tier, which is spectacular. Like, he is right there with like Jared Verse, Latu, as well as Marshawn Kneeland. So Nick Scourton, he's going to be a great player there for Texas A&M. I'm excited to see how he plays. 17, the Browns go Ashton Jeanty. If he didn't fumble 5 times last year, he would probably be my RB1. So keep that in mind. He is explosive. He has great contact balance. He has elite vision. Like, there's nothing that's really bad about Ashton except for that fumbling. Then we got the Bears going Abdul Carter, linebacker / edge out of Penn State. But I'm going to just say for everybody in the back, it's an edge rusher. 250 pounds. His primary asset is his zone coverage ability as well as his pass rush, which is more based on impact rather than actual skill, which I'm excited to see him develop the skill over this year because he's already proven that he can actually be a gap penetrator on the line of scrimmage. Bears do need an edge too. I just don't know if Abdul would be the polished guy that I would go for at this moment. The Rams then go Jonas Savigny, right tackle out of Arizona. You'd have to move him to left. I don't know if he's actually moving to left. So there you go. You have to shift away from right tackle. So I guess they're going to move him to left. Really got embarrassed by Latu. Technicians just take advantage of him because he's still so green. I doubt the Rams, unless they're going to hit the reset switch, would benefit from taking him at this point. At 20, the Falcons go Emeka Egbuka. He's honestly a really solid option. Your slot role is going to be wide open after this year. Rondale, is it Rondale Moore? I'm tripping. I'm like remembering back in the day. Rondale Moore, if I'm not mistaken, is on a 1-year contract, so you're going to be having to replace that slot anyways. Emeka can really thrive there when healthy. It's just he hasn't been healthy. Dolphins then go Kenneth Grant. I think that'd be phenomenal at 21. He has a size and frame that can really end up being like perfect for when you lost Christian Wilkins, and he has unbelievable athleticism. He caught up to one of Penn State's running backs. I think it was Katron Allen from behind. And he's 340 pounds. That's ridiculous. Like, he just needs to polish his game up. His pass rushing upside is ridiculous, but in terms of his run stuffing ability, I think it does lack, especially for his size. And we'll see if that improves over the year. At 22, the Jets go Donovan Smith. I do know that Donovan Smith is a very talented quarterback. Ian loves him a lot. Really good mobility. He just fluctuates too much, similar to Cam Ward, between making very smart, very eye-popping decisions and ones that almost just make you scratch your head. And I'm not a huge fan of that. Like, there's just a lot of plays on his tape that I thought he should have done a smarter decision. But Donovan Smith does have that upside to be a spectacular quarterback. Ollie Gordon then goes to the Cowboys at pick 23. He's a home run hitter. I think he fits perfectly what the Dallas Cowboys are looking for out of a running back. I would just try to wait till the next round because this class has a lot of really good ones. Packers go to 6'4" Dacario Davis at 24. Dacario is awesome. He's super smart. I just think his change of direction is not that great, but it is made up for by the fact that he does react very well. His reaction timing is spot on. So if you put him in the right position, I think he'll be able to thrive. At pick 25, the Eagles go to James Pierce. James Pierce, this is perfect location for him to go. I'm also not scrolling down because of the fact that I do have my tight ends in a particular order, and I don't want to spoil what's going to be coming up this week. But regardless, James Pierce is fantastic, especially at pick 25. For me, he is, I think, at 25 on my board, and he just needs to polish up his game a little bit. At this moment, he's the 25th best player in the draft, and that's something I do like to see is like the players who I have faith in right now, seeing how they develop over the year. Cincinnati Bengals then go Isaiah Bond. I love Isaiah Bond. He was, I believe, my wide receiver 2. And I think that his explosiveness, like, it might be a little bit of a smaller receiving core with Jermaine Burton there, but that's something where I'd hope Joe Burrow can adapt and really allow Bond and Burton to open up the offense, because that'd be super exciting. Then we got the Bills going Emory Jones. Emory Jones, he's like right here on your board, on your screen at number 11 on my board. Fantastic player. He's a right tackle, so Spencer Brown's going to be up for a contract, and Emory Jones is far superior. He's probably just as athletic, and he just probably has a little bit worse arm length. I think he's around 33.5 inches. But Emory Jones is someone who I do trust to be able to be a solid offensive lineman as a tackle. I do think he could be slightly better as a guard. Then we have pick 28, Texans going Denzel Burke. Literally the definition of great in a lot of categories. Maybe not elite in a lot of categories, but I doubt that he'd ever become a liability. Like, genuinely somebody who I don't have an issue with at all, because even in his sophomore slump, he ended up ascending at the end. Will Campbell goes at 29 to the Lions. This would be the surprise, but he also could end up being a guard, which I think would be the right move there for the Lions. Will Campbell's 33-inch arms. He's an awesome player. Like, he's number 18 on my board. Like, I think that's great. This would be a steal, absolutely. And he's somebody where I had a pretty poor first reaction to him, but the more games I saw, the more I ended up liking him. And, you just need to end up seeing him versus different styles of player. And pretty much Dallas Turner was the one guy to really have that gotcha moment or that gotcha half. And everybody else has been far more inconsistent. So I really do like Will Campbell. I think he's great. Josh Connerly then goes to the Ravens. He is probably going to be a guard. He has a lot of issues in terms of anchor and overall polish, but he's somebody who has a ton of upside, very, very raw. And again, 6'4", 305. It's just hard to believe he's going to be a pure left tackle, but we'll see what happens. He's going to be a fun player to watch this year. The Ravens going offensive line is never a bad idea, especially ones that are athletic. Niners then go Barrett Carter. Barrett Carter is my number 2 linebacker in the class. You can check out my linebacker video on that. I think this would be an excellent move to have him as the Sam linebacker to replace Devondre Campbell. And God forbid, if the Niners can't get Greenlaw back to normal after that Achilles, which I assume they will, Barrett Carter could also could be able to learn and play that role as well. Of course, I do have Harold Perkins on the board, but I would rather have him as a pure edge rusher rather than a pure linebacker. Then we had the Chiefs, of course, going Harold Perkins. The rich get richer. I would just love to see how he'd be deployed in this defense because I don't trust Spag to properly use Harold Perkins as a true edge rusher with some linebacker coverage ability. But we'll see because a lot of the thumping is done by Leo Chenal at this point, and Harold Perkins might be in a role that he can end up shining in, which is his coverage ability, his athleticism, and his pass rush ability. So that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching, showing the love you always do. I love y'all. See you on the far side. Peace.